Hello there guys, and welcome back to the Flying Birds channel for day 10 of my vlog series. And this one I want to personally give a shout out to those that are going to be triggered because I talk about Donald Trump. Because seriously, if you support Donald Trump, when you remove him from the political sphere of him against Clinton, you're a moron. I'll tell you that now, straight up, from the bottom of my heart. You know, the reason why hate crimes exist, that you support a white supremacist movement that is simply for economic gain, that is simply for his own personal benefit. But in saying that too, if you support Hillary Clinton, you're fucking stupid as well. Unless it's in the context of her versus Trump, because Hillary monetized and capitalizes off wars, and she will do it again and again and again. I mean, I think it's quite ironic that she stands up for women's rights, and people are telling me, oh, my fan's going, so you're going to hear that again, but I'm quickly turning it off. I think it's ironic that she's telling us that we've got to go fight the Muslims in foreign countries, the Islamic State and the Muslims, when she's taken money from Muslims. Doesn't that seem a bit absurd? I mean, I once read a report that they said in the future the rich are going to hunt the poor for sport. But I thought to myself, that's such an absurd thought because it's already happening now. You know why? You don't want to know why it's happening? Let me give you a bit of a backstory about America, right? So let's not worry about colonization and all that, because and the Civil War and all that. So let's give a bit of a quick summary since about World War One. In World War One, America saw the opportunity to capitalize by giving war bonds out to both Germany and Britain. And in 1918, when they realized that Germany were never going to be able to pay them back, they essentially betted on against Germany losing the war. And to help Britain pay them back, and it's a bit of a conspiracy theory, but I do believe in this, they sunk the Lusitania, blamed it on a German news sub. The stupidity of the German propaganda at the time drummed it up a lot. There's a thing referred to as the Zimmerman telegraph. I think it's Zimmerman or something like that, telegraph. And the whole point of that telegraph was saying how proud Germany was that they sunk this bloody American boat, which I think is really absurd. But it makes a lot of sense, right? So pretty much, America win the war. You know, I can't remember, was it Roosevelt? No, it wasn't Roosevelt. Who was his name? Lloyd George, wasn't it? Yes, Lloyd George, because the brainchild was League of Nations, right? And ironically, America never joined the League of Nations because they didn't see it in their best interest. Which, I mean, it's sort of seems a bit absurd to me that they wouldn't want to join a cause about solving world peace and internationalism over domestic policy. Seems a bit absurd to me, doesn't it? Does it seem absurd to you that America chose not to join the League of Nations? And essentially that was what led to the collapse. You know that they supported the Nazis, right? You know that they supported the economic, so the King of England. Actually, am I getting it wrong? I might be getting my date wrong, but they definitely did help out the Nazis. They gave a lot of bonds, and that's why when the Great Depression hit, they didn't help the Nazis, but they gave rise to the Nazis, because when the Great Depression hit in 1930, Hitler could use it as an opportunity to propagate his message about the minority group, or the majority group nearly, of the Jews, but they were mostly a minority that held a lot of the wealth in Germany, or so it was believed. If we're going to discuss Germany, that's a time for another day, because I've got heaps of stuff on it, and if people want to know about that stuff, like, leave a comment, tell me you want to hear it. But America, how many wars do we have to beg against? How many wars do Australians have to get dragged into to support America? How many wars does other respective allies have to be dragged into war to help them fight an enemy that somehow magically appears every 10-20 years? I mean, from 1918 to about 1945, it was the Germans. And then after, you have the Korean War, and then it's the next minute the Soviets for about 50 years. And then when the Soviets are gone, because the Soviets now are a world power, that's now the Middle East. And that's really absurd to me, because I don't understand, right? You want to tell me that the most powerful man is the president, right? Here's why he's the most powerful man, because he can do stupid shit and give rise to these groups like the Islamic State, Al Qaeda. I mean, you know what the most ironic thing about the Vietnam War is, right? They trained the Japanese soldiers, no, so the Vietnamese soldiers, right, to beat the Japanese in World War II. And Ho Chi Minh was a communist. He never played it down, but they trained him, right? And then you get him 30 years later, you go, oh shit, we can't have a communist country in Asia because then we'll have the whole domino theory, right? So what? They go to Vietnam to start another war. I mean, that was stupid. That was a bunch of lives lost for no pointless reason, and it's left a country in two. You know? I don't get it. But, you know, we then have Al Qaeda and ISIS. I mean, 10 years ago it was Afghanistan and the Taliban, but now it's Islamic State. 10 years before the Taliban, we had Al Qaeda. And when you look at it, they're all off-breaks of Al Qaeda. So if you ask me, they're either A, doing a really poor job of Al Qaeda, or B, they're letting it happen. And in some of the reports that I've seen, they're letting it happen. Because war is a profit-made industry for the wealthiest to play. And that's why they are hunting poor people. I mean, also considering that the Middle East has the most lucrative resource being oil, but at the same time we can't help out our people starving in Africa and Uganda and all that. We get told, look at these starving children. But definitely in Australia it's definitely propagated. We can't help them because we're too busy fighting a war in the Middle East for oil, and we're using the facade of religion, which I think is really ironic when you get into the United States of America, because in 1950 they did add the personal oath to God, being the Christian God, which I think is really ironic, because it does mean that it explicitly states that America is non-secular country. So religion influences America, right? Now, I believe that all religions are about peace as its core value, and it tries to promote peace, and it tries to provide a lot of questions to a lot of unanswerable ones. Like, where do we go when we die? How long do we have on this earth? Who do we look up to? I'm telling you now, fundamentalism is killing this world. I've read a bit of the Quran. The Quran is definitely an interesting thing, but when you look at the beliefs held by Islam and the words spoken of Muhammad, there should never be a war in the Middle East. You know why? Because Islam means peace and submission to God. Just think about that for a moment. They're telling us that we're fighting a war against a religious group that literally, its name, so when they say Islamic State, they literally are saying peace and submission to Allah State. Well, if you want to take it even more literally, it is a state that wants to be under Sharia law. And with some of the when I got taught in school, and yes, you go, oh, but you're trusting the system. I said, no, this guy was a Christian, had a massive respect for Islam. He did a lot of reading on it. We had scholars from Islam and things like that. He said, some of the world leaders believe that we should just set up a state under Sharia law to eradicate the violence. Well, I find it really interesting that we have it, that we follow America. I'm an Americanophobe, or whatever the term is, that means that I don't believe that America's the right way to follow. You know why I don't think that? Because there are some fundamental problems. I was hoping my boy Togue was going to help me out with some constitutional info, but alas, he couldn't, because but that's the only mention of any name, because I wanted to ask a few people around that are Americans, see what their thoughts were, or even Australians as well, to see what their thoughts were. And I think the main thing is this showed that the system failed Trump getting to where he got. Just think about that for a moment. If you're a Trump supporter, you tell me right now, wait, what was even the vote count? How many people didn't less? Oh, great, so many bloody tabs open. Sam Frawls is going to have a field day with me. America percentage of votes. So let's have a look at this, right? I think it was like 60% chose not to vote. No. I think more people... Or 2016. So we had 48%, so the majority did not vote, and you have a president. Let that sink in for a moment. You are a democratic country, but the majority didn't vote, and you still have a president. Let that sink in. Because if you're saying, oh, Trump won the election, boy, he did not win the election, he won who voted. I don't think anyone holds his beliefs. I think, you know what I think it was, right? I think it was like an allergy, right? So literally, people had could have an allergic reaction to Trump or Hillary. You just had to pick one. In my eyes, Bernie Sanders, as romantic as I am, I'm going to scratch my head because of how amazing he was, but he was the best candidate for the job. He wanted to change the establishment. Neither of Hillary or Trump wanted to change the establishment, and that's why I had an issue with both of them. The only thing I saw was that Trump was smart enough to say, you know what, Putin, we can have something special here. What do you mean, Donald? Well, I think we can form a relationship. That's banned if we're going to kiss, that's banned in Russia. I mean, homosexuals are banned in Russia. It's illegal to talk about them, so this will get censored in the Russian version of Burb story. But you tell me now, right, that if you wanted to go to war with Russia, because you were a Hillary supporter, you literally just said you wanted to fight one of the world's largest nuclear weapon arsenals in the world. Fun fact as well, the British Prime Minister not too long ago did mention that she has one of the world's largest nuclear arsenals and was not afraid to use it, if I remember correctly. If not, I do apologise. I have not fact-checked for a while. But the thing about Trump is no one questions the system. They all say, how did you vote for Trump? How did you vote for Clinton? No one questions the system that goes on. And I think there's very few that do. And the people that do are the people I talk to about this most. Because, you know what? There are some things in this world where people will sell out for money. Look at the Young Turks, right? They were meant to be one of the most freest independent presses. But they were sold out. They were bought over. They weren't so sold out, and they thought they were better than everyone. But in reality, they only had the power because no one challenged them. It's the same as this. And we can say, but the Young Turks supported Bernie Sanders and the Wolfpack. And I say, yeah, man, I agree completely with those initiatives. I don't think a president should be a pay-to-win campaign. And you know that I was reading a report or something like they spent... Oh, actually, hang on. Where's my phone? Oh. I read a report. Alright, so, when Trump won the election, I put up a lot of Facebook status saying, it's good to know that, how long will it take for Trump to make America great again? He won't, because there's still going to be a war in the Middle East at the start and at the end of his term. There are still going to be massive economic gaps from the start to the end of his term. The only advantage he has over Obama is that so far no one's trying to short the system. Trump's going to have to deal with immigration, probably, I don't know. I think that with Trump, it's the greatest example of social engineering ever. Because it's even better than Hitler. I don't know how to tell you that. Because the thing with Hitler is that Hitler was an evil man, but his whole party was an evil structure. And you have Trump. Like, Hitler only persecuted a lot of majority groups, but he's only targeted one mainly. But you have Trump, who targets several majority groups. He wants to start a war with 1 billion Muslims. I think it's one of the world's largest religions, because a group that is about as small as, I think it's 2,000, 3,000, is starting wars and starting colonialism, much like Germany tried to do in about 1870s. And that was the point I saw sort of in my head. But you see, the way to eradicate the violence is you have to stop the cycle of violence. Because, you see, what happens is, you have war in a country, right? People then leave the war-torn country. So, best example is Australia had a massive wave of immigration from European countries after World War II. And I think Baltic states as well, and that were, under fire by Russia. But people don't want to talk about that. People want to say, these Muslims, what are they doing? These Mexicans, what are they doing? You know that Mexico once had a power vacuum, and that's why they have a large-scale immigration, I found out. That was another thing I got taught in school. I did a lot of research on it. There's a power vacuum. It's now the third wave of Mexican immigration. There is a lot of issues with Mexican immigration, in my opinion, but I don't know why, but the way that Trump acts towards Mexican immigration, the demonization of Mexicans as rapists, as violence, as, that's the biggest load of shit I have ever heard. And to break sweeping, broad generalizations like that is why we have so many fucking hate crimes, alright? Because one person is an individual. To put them as a collective is a different story, right? Oh, someone YouTube video me. Sorry, 1 second, Sazo. I'm recording at the moment. Oh my god. It's going to be a fun video to watch after, but I'm recording at the moment. Sorry. It's only important for him. But, yeah. You have people who want to make these sweeping generalizations, right? Now Dylan Roof was an American citizen. The guys that committed Columbine, I can't remember the top of my head, were Americans. Adam Lanza was an American. The guy that committed the Orlando massacre was an American. I think when we watched the Fence documentary, which is a great documentary, I advise anyone to check it out if they want to look at it's definitely more sided to the Mexicans, a bit unfairly biased in my opinion. But as a, I guess as a critic, you have to be aware of the biasness in it. But the main thing is, right? This is the main thing. Trump categorizes these people, and then people believe them. No one fact-checked him. I remember thinking about it, right? Apparently in America, this is when the Fence was recorded, I think it was 2004, 2005. There was only 12 attacks since 9/11 that were in from outside of the US that came into America to commit the terrorist attack. And I think 8 of them were by plane and were registered immigrants, right? Registered immigrants came to America and they committed things. I need a bit more water, sorry about that. I've been talking for a while now. I think this video's going to be a bit long, but it's alright because I want to really put out my views. Oh my god, my voice, but yeah. The Mexican president, man, that guy's a legend. What's his name? I can't remember. I know Manuel's going to comment it in the description. He's going to be like, the comments going to be like, James, you forgot the Mexican man. He is taking that hard line with Trump, and I love it. When you are not paying for a wall, you are telling those American taxpayers that they're paying for that wall. Do you know what the funny thing is? That's exactly what Bush did. I don't know why they compared Trump so much to Hitler. He's definitely another reincarnation of a Bush. The reason I say that is because Bush wanted to build a wall. Except no one cared about that. Another note I have here. He focused on his candidate's flaws. But you know what? The thing about Trump is that I ultimately believe if you shove something down people's throat, they're going to regurgitate that. And once they regurgitate that and they are smart enough and aware enough, they're going to vote for the other because I think there's something shady with Trump. Well, not shady with Trump, but there's something that the media are not telling them. And that's something very important. That's why we had WikiLeaks. WikiLeaks was the greatest thing to happen to this election. Because I love hearing that a Russian hacking scandal is going on when it was an Aussie in an Ecuadorian embassy who's wanted in like 3 countries for hacking. Hacked the US and hacked Hillary Clinton's emails. And apparently the password was this password. I think that's even better. And yeah, they exposed her. And you find that amazing. But you know what? It's good to know that we're so focused on the two candidates. We're so focusing on the basic issues that are going on. You know what amazes me, right? We are so worried about where these shooters come from that commit these mass shootings in America that we overlook how do they occur. Because I've got to tell you now, Australia hasn't had a mass shooting in like 20 years. We don't have guns. I don't know why. It's just weird, right? And then you get the whole debate. Oh, I could dump with a knife. Yeah, we haven't had really that many mass stabbings. Probably a few guys on the googs at a bit of a music festival. Probably stabbed a few kids. But it's not like 35 were found dead in a homicide range in a Sydney nightclub last night after a violent knife attack. 5 were found dead in Sydney airport this morning, victims of a knife attack. Like we did have one other mass shooting, which was 4, which is the cafe siege. But I mean, that's 4, right? 4 people. I mean, it's very tragic that they lost, but in comparison to the US, I mean, we're going to get into the real thing of, but Australia's got 10th of the size, alright, so it's got to be a 40 shooting, right? There was one last year, and that was the Orlando massacre. I don't know how many have happened, but in Australia, that was 4 years since we had the cafe siege. That was 4. So we're going to equivalent that to about 40, right? 40 people were killed in Olympus cafe siege, right? In Australia. 40. Bear in mind that's the first time ever I've seen a riot squad used in Australia in the public eye, which I thought was amazing. Because, we have was it Standing Rock in America, and they have the tear gas and all that. I reckon if that was in Australia, we're having that protest, some kid probably would have started selling Bunnings snags. It would have been just chilled, I reckon. I've seen a few protests in Australia, they're pretty chilled in comparison to America. I think it's because mainly we don't have a gun, so unless people start throwing knives around, which is really stupid in Australia, because, I don't know, it just is. I've seen a few people carry knives, but it's weird because I've never seen anyone use them. This is my personal experience. I remember, the ones that we have seen with knives, there was this thing that happened close to me last year where 3 people stabbed a Muslim to death, and it was labelled as a hate crime, right? But it was a case of mistaken identity, because it was actually the cousin, and it was revenge, and it was retaliation. And it really just sums up what's happening in the Middle East, and that's a taste for another time. And they went home and got knives to stab the kid. They didn't have them on them. If that was America, it would have been 3 pistols and boom, 4 or 5 dead. But no one wants to look at that issue, because we're too busy about who the bloody candidate's going to be. I remember Obama, after Sandy Hook, 4 years ago. I thought Sandy Hook was like a year ago. It was 4 years ago. He said he wanted to put in more gun control. I heard after the Orlando massacre, they wanted to put in more gun control. What's happening? Because you seem to still have a high amount of shootings going on. I don't know. Maybe the real issue is this, is that you have guns and an extreme sense of nationalism and violence and racism and entitlement, because you believe that you are the freest country in the world, that you believe that you are the greatest country in the world, that you believe that your rights, that you should be able to live the American dream. And if those who oppose the American dream should bow down to your American dream. Some of the worst atrocities in history have occurred. Don't partake in another one. If you voted for Trump, congrats, you won. That's all I'm going to say on that. But if you say you voted for Trump and go around and promote his message of hate, you believe that Mexicans are racist and rapists, and you believe that black people are below you and beneath you, when Harlem and things like that. You know what I find so ironic? I reckon the people that say that they're Trump supporters are probably the exact same guys that have Kobe Bryant posters up in their room, because you know what? It's cool. But you know why? Because sometimes people only see the value in other races when they see that benefiting them. And you know what? It's probably not Kobe Bryant, it's probably other stuff, right? But you don't know that. Because some people need to hide behind a mask I find it ironic that Americans, not Mexicans, Mexicans are alright, they're the victims here. Americans are against the burqa and things like that, Australians are against the burqa. Like, we believe that, if you're in a public building, you should be able to use it for identification, which I believe is completely fine, because the KKK can hide. But that's my thoughts on it. It's very long. It's definitely something that we should explore further, but I think this is like a 40-minute podcast. I've just got one of my mate's notes here. He'll probably know whose notes are, but I'm going to keep it secret. But until next time, peace.